On December 11, 2012, the state of Florida executed Manuel Pardo Jr. by lethal injection at Florida State Prison in Starka. He had been a Navy veteran, a Marine Corps reservist, a Florida Highway Patrol trooper who graduated valedictorian from the academy, and a Sweetwater police officer. Between January and April of 1986, he killed 9 people across Miami-Dade County in 92 days. He was 56 years old when he died. The system that trained him had plenty of chances to stop what was coming. If you follow cases where the warning signs existed before the harm was done, and where institutions had the information and did nothing with it, subscribe now. This case has that failure written into every agency file Pardo ever accumulated. Before we get to Manuel Pardo, we start with the 9 people he killed. Mario Amador was 33 years old. He was a civil engineer who also sold cocaine on the side. On January 22, 1986, in Hialeah, Pardo shot him 6 times in the head, twice in the neck, and once in the leg, after handcuffing him face down on the floor. Roberto Alfonso was 28. He was a parking lot attendant. He was present at the same transaction. Pardo handcuffed him face down alongside Amador and shot him 4 times in the head. The public record contains no family statements for either man. That absence is itself part of what this case left behind. Michael Milo was 43. He was a Haitian anti-Duvalier activist embedded in Miami's Haitian exile community and a skilled gunsmith. He had previously made silencers for Pardo. On January 28, 1986, in Miramar, he was lured to a car, sat down in the front passenger seat, and Pardo shot him once in the head from the back seat with a 9mm pistol. Again, no family statements appear in the record. Luis Robledo was 37. He sold cocaine. On February 27, 1986, in Miami-Dade County, Pardo shot him in the back, twice in the right temple, and in the head with a silenced .22 caliber Ruger. Armando Ulpiano Ledo was 39. He was a welder and a Santeria priest. He was in the apartment with Robledo. Pardo shot him in the elbow, the neck, the ear, and the forehead, as Ledo tried to flee over a couch. Both men died at the scene. The record holds no family statements for either of them. Sarah Musa was 28. Farah Quintero was 30. Both women were acquaintances of Pardo's co-defendant, Rolando Garcia. On April 22, 1986, in Hialeah, Pardo shot both of them multiple times in their apartment. Regino Musa, Sarah's brother, was still having nightmares about his sister's death when Pardo's execution date arrived 26 years later. He said he did not have words to describe it. He and his elderly mother attended the execution. Frank Judd, Farah Quintero's nephew, read a statement after the execution was carried out. He thanked the state of Florida for bringing closure to his family. He said the pain his family carries continues to this day. Ramon Alvaro Cruz was 41. He was a drug dealer. He was Pardo and Garcia's employer in the drug trade. On April 23, 1986, Pardo shot him multiple times with his .22 Ruger and left his body in the trunk of Alvaro's own car. No family statement appears in the record. Daisy Josefina Ricard was 37. She was Ramon Alvaro Cruz's girlfriend. She was present when Pardo came to kill Alvaro. That was her only connection to any of this. Pardo shot her once. His gun jammed. He unjammed it by using it to strike her in the skull. He then shot himself in the foot in the process. He finished shooting Daisy Ricard, and then they drove her body to a wooded area in Hialeah and left it there. She was found that evening, April 23, 1986, at approximately 6:30 p.m. She had been shot in the head by 2 different .22 caliber pistols and was missing one shoe. Her watch was found near her body. Pardo's fingerprints were on it. Manuel Pardo Jr. was born in New York on September 24, 1956. He was a Boy Scout. He enlisted in the Navy at 17 and served from 1974 to 1978, earning honors for good conduct and sharpshooting before receiving an honorable discharge. After a short stint as a bank clerk, he was accepted into the Florida Highway Patrol Academy, where he graduated valedictorian of his class. He later earned 2 college degrees. In 1981, while working as a police officer in Sweetwater, he re-enlisted in the Marine Corps as a reservist. He received a commendation for resuscitating an infant who had stopped breathing. On paper, he was exactly what law enforcement wanted to produce. The private reality was documented at every agency that employed him and never added up to anything that stopped him. The FHP identified that Pardo was writing fraudulent traffic tickets. His career at the patrol ended due to that dishonesty. The sources conflict slightly on whether he was formally fired or resigned under investigation in early 1980, and no primary personnel record has resolved that distinction publicly. What is not in dispute is that he left the FHP under a cloud of documented dishonesty and was immediately hired by the Sweetwater Police Department in Miami-Dade County. No mechanism existed to share the FHP's findings with Sweetwater. Sweetwater did not ask or was not told. They put him in a uniform. In 1981, Pardo was one of 4 Sweetwater officers charged with brutality. 4 officers charged simultaneously. Not one rogue actor. 4. The cases were dismissed, and Pardo stayed on the job. No documented inquiry into the culture at Sweetwater followed. In January 1985, Pardo flew to the Bahamas to testify on behalf of a former Sweetwater colleague who was on trial for drug smuggling. In front of a foreign court, Pardo claimed he and the accused were international undercover drug agents. It was a lie. Sweetwater fired him for it. That is all they did. A serving police officer committed perjury in a criminal proceeding in a foreign jurisdiction on behalf of a colleague accused of drug smuggling. He was fired. No referral to criminal prosecutors. No report to a law enforcement standards body. The door simply opened, and he walked out. After the apartment search that followed his arrest, investigators found a family dog named Satan, tattooed with a swastika. They found Polaroid photographs of Pardo's victims. They found anti-black and anti-Jewish memorabilia throughout the apartment. Pardo's defense attorney later stated plainly that his client did not like Jewish people, the gay community, people who use narcotics, or black people. Pardo had an obsession with Hitler and the Nazi regime that was visible to the people around him. His apartment, when searched, confirmed it without ambiguity. None of this appears in any pre-firing record from the FHP or Sweetwater. Post-conviction, blood tests confirmed that Pardo had a severe thyroid and hormonal disorder that produced physical changes visible to attorneys and mental health experts who worked on his case. The defense argued in post-conviction proceedings that this disorder caused severe mood disturbance and clinical depression that went undiagnosed throughout his law enforcement career and his trial. No treating physician or employer during that career documented any referral for psychiatric or medical evaluation, despite, according to Pardo's post-conviction team, visible physical deterioration. No court accepted this as grounds for relief, but the medical record leaves an institutional question that no formal inquiry has addressed. After Sweetwater fired him, Pardo moved into the Miami drug trade. He had connections, he had skills, and he had no accountability following him. He met Rolando Garcia, a laborer introduced to him through his brother-in-law, and the two began doing cocaine rip-offs together in late 1985. Pardo's stated ideology, documented in his diary and repeated on the witness stand, was that he was ridding society of parasites because the legal system was incapable of doing it. He framed himself as a soldier conducting a mission. He bought weapons and he acquired the means to use them quietly. The firearms acquisition for what followed was systematic. Rolando Garcia's fingerprints were on the purchase forms for 5 .22 caliber Ruger pistols and 1 Beretta. Michael Mila, the Haitian gunsmith Pardo would later kill, had previously fabricated silencers for Pardo's handguns. Pardo arrived at drug deals carrying a briefcase. Inside the briefcase, a silenced .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. He had a method. He used it consistently. On January 22, 1986, Pardo and Garcia arrived at Mario Amador's residence in Hialeah, ostensibly to purchase 2 kilograms of cocaine. Pardo carried the briefcase. While Amador was occupied with the transaction, Pardo drew the silenced pistol and shot both Amador and Roberto Alfonso. He handcuffed them face down and emptied the magazines. 9 rounds came from one weapon, 4 rounds came from a second, all of them, and .22 caliber, all consistent with a silencer. Amador received 6 wounds to the head, 2 to the neck, and 1 to the leg. Alfonso received 4 shots to the head. 6 days later, on January 28th, Garcia lured Michael Millau to the car belonging to Pardo's wife, where Pardo was already waiting in the back seat. Millau sat down in the front passenger seat. Pardo shot him once in the head with a 9mm pistol. Afterward, the car's interior was reupholstered, the blood cleaned out, and the fabric replaced. On February 27th, Pardo and Garcia arrived at Luis Robledo's apartment in Miami-Dade County, supposedly to purchase 3 kilograms of cocaine on behalf of their employer, Ramon Alvaro. Pardo excused himself to use the bathroom. He came out with the silenced Ruger. He shot Robledo in the back, twice in the right temple, and in the head. Armando Ulpiano Ledo tried to run. Pardo shot him in the elbow, the neck, the ear, and the forehead. Ledo went down and did not get up. On April 22nd, the trigger was a $50 ring. Farah Quintero had given Garcia a gold ring to pawn because she needed cash. Garcia used the $50 for cocaine instead. Quintero and Saramusa had also spoken badly of Garcia to others. Pardo and Garcia went to their apartment in Hialeah. Pardo went to the bathroom. He produced the Ruger. He shot Saramusa multiple times. He then shot Farah Quintero. He also used their credit cards afterward to buy VCRs. Those purchases would be traced back to him. April 23rd was the last day of the spree. Pardo shot Ramon Alvaro, the man who had been paying him and Garcia, multiple times with the Ruger. Alvaro's body went into the trunk of his own car. Daisy Ricard was there. Pardo shot her once. The gun jammed mid-kill. He drove the slide of the weapon into her skull to clear it and accidentally discharged a round into his own foot. Then he shot Daisy Ricard with several more rounds, and they drove her body to a wooded area off the road and left it there. Within hours, Pardo and Garcia were on a plane to New York City. At a hospital in New York, they told doctors Pardo had been shot while visiting the city. The doctors extracted the bullet from his foot. The bullet matched the rounds taken from the bodies of Daisy Ricard and Ramon Alvaro. That was the thread. Florida investigators obtained a search warrant for Pardo's apartment in Hialeah. Inside, they found the dog named Satan, tattooed with a swastika. They found Polaroid photographs Pardo had taken of his victims. They found newspaper clippings about each of the murders. They found a diary. They found anti-black and anti-Jewish memorabilia throughout the space. They found a calendar book that linked 7 additional unsolved homicides. Pardo was never charged with those. After his arrest, he told a fellow inmate that police had also missed 3 murders he committed in Homestead, Florida. He was never charged with those either. Rolando Garcia was arrested on May 23, 1986. When investigators showed him photographs of the victims, Garcia said, "We took care of all these people." The trial took place in 1988 in Dade County Circuit Court before Judge Philip W. Knight. Pardo's defense attorney was Ronald S. Goralnik. The trials of Pardo and Garcia were severed after a mistrial, and Pardo faced all 9 counts together. The state's first witness was Carlo Manuel Ribera, who testified that Pardo and Garcia had shown him newspaper clippings, a diary, and photographs, telling him these documented people they had killed. Then came the physical evidence. The diary, the clippings, the Polaroid photographs, the ballistic matches linking Pardo's firearms to all 9 murders, the bullet pulled from his foot in New York City, the stolen credit cards, his fingerprints on Daisy Ricard's watch. Then Pardo took the stand himself. Against the advice of his attorney, he admitted he killed all 9 victims. He said they were drug dealers who had no right to live. He said the legal system was incapable of ridding society of parasites. The defense argued he was insane, compelled by unconscious impulses he could not control. Defense expert Dr. Civil Marquette testified Pardo was legally insane. Dr. Marquette also testified, however, that Pardo knew exactly what he was doing was against the law, and that if caught, he would be severely punished. 3 prosecution experts, Drs. Leonard Haber, Jacobson, and Miller, all found him sane and competent. The jury rejected the insanity defense, guilty on all 9 counts. At the penalty phase, the jury recommended death by a margin of 8-4 for the murders of Amador, Musa, and Millo, 9-3 for Alfonso, Robledo, and Ledo, and 10-2 for Quintero, Alvaro, and Ricard. At sentencing, Pardo spoke directly to Judge Knight. He said, "What I'm begging you to do is let me have a glorious ending and not condemn me to a state institution for the rest of my life. I'm not a criminal, I'm a soldier. As a soldier, I asked to be given the death penalty. I accomplished my mission. The judge imposed 9 death sentences on April 20th, 1988. The court found each murder was carried out in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without moral or legal justification. Pardo's direct appeal to the Florida Supreme Court was denied on May 31st, 1990. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to review the case in May 1991. A post-conviction motion filed in 1992 and amended in 2001, which raised a Brady violation over an 8-hour videotaped pretrial statement from prosecution witness Carlo Manuel Ribera that the state had never disclosed, was heard over 2 days of evidentiary proceedings and then denied in 2003. Courts found the withheld tapes would not have changed the outcome. The Florida Supreme Court affirmed denial of post-conviction relief in 2006. A federal habeas petition was denied by the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida in April 2008. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed in November 2009, after oral argument in June of that year. The U.S. Supreme Court declined review a second time in 2010. Every argument, every court, every level of the federal system, all denied. On October 30th, 2012, Governor Rick Scott signed the death warrant. The execution was scheduled for December 11th, 2012. Pardo's final meal was red beans and rice, roasted pork, plantains, avocado with tomatoes and olive oil, pumpkin pie, Cuban coffee, and eggnog. He spent the day visiting with 8 relatives and friends and meeting with a prison chaplain and a Roman Catholic bishop. About 45 death penalty protesters gathered in a field across from the prison. The Archdiocese of Miami held a vigil for him. The execution was set for 6 p.m., but was delayed while the U.S. Supreme Court considered his final appeals. The court rejected them without comment, and the process moved forward. At 7:31 p.m., Pardo spoke his final words. The sound system in the death chamber malfunctioned and witnesses could not hear him. An official relayed what he said. "Airborne forever. I love you, Michi baby." The process began. At 7:33 p.m., Pardo yawned and turned his head slightly to the right. His eyes opened a few times. He looked, by witness accounts, like a man 20 years older than his age drifting off to sleep. A doctor checked his pupils and heart. At 7:47 p.m., his death was confirmed. Pardo had also issued a written statement before the execution. In it, he denied killing the 3 women. He wrote, "I never harmed those 3 women or any female. I took the blame as I knew I was doomed, and it made no difference to me, at this time, having 6 or 9 death sentences." He offered no apology to any of the 9 families. He praised the New York Yankees and Giants. He expressed hope that Spain would never abandon bullfighting. He instructed his daughter, "Remember, Michi, you are airborne and hardcore, no tears." His convictions for all 9 murders had been affirmed at every level of appeal, and no court accepted his claim about the women. His co-defendant, Rolando Garcia, had his convictions reversed and remanded for separate trials. Garcia eventually pled guilty to 4 counts of second-degree murder and received a 25-year sentence. His current status is not documented in publicly available sources. Pardo's daughter, Monique Pardo Pope, became a lawyer. She ran for the City of Miami Beach Commission. On social media, she referred to her father as "my hero." Prosecutor David Waxman put it plainly at the time of the execution. He was just a cold-blooded killer who used to be a cop. The 9 people Manuel Pardo killed had names: Mario Amador, Roberto Alfonso, Michael Millo, Luis Robledo, Armando Ulpiano Ledo, Sara Musa, Farah Quintero, Ramon Alvaro Cruz, Daisy Josefina Ricard. For most of them, the public record contains no family statements, no surviving biographical accounts beyond the facts of how they died. That gap in the record is part of what this case left behind. What the record does contain is this: a calendar book found in Pardo's apartment, linked by investigators to 7 additional unsolved homicides for which he was never charged, and a brag to a fellow inmate about 3 more in Homestead, also uncharged. The official count ends at 9. The documented uncertainty does not. Here is the question I want to leave you with. Pardo demanded the death penalty from the moment of his sentencing. He called it a glorious ending. He said he was a soldier who had accomplished his mission. He spent 26 years on death row and issued no apology in his final statement. Does executing someone who actively wanted to be executed and who framed his own death as military closure constitute justice for the 9 people he killed, or does it fulfill the narrative he constructed for himself? Leave your answer in the comments. If you want to keep following cases where the system had the information and failed to act on it, subscribe and hit the bell. The next case on this channel follows the same thread in a very different direction.